The Steamboat Twilight Chapter 1. The steamboat era and the rise of the twilight in the mid-19th century. The rivers of America were the arteries of a nation expanding westward, carrying the lifeblood of commerce, people, and progress. Steamboats, with their towering smokestacks and massive paddle wheels, were the technological marvels that powered this expansion. They traversed the vast networks of rivers that connected bustling cities, remote frontier outposts, and burgeoning settlements. Among the many steamboats that plied these waters, the Twilight was a vessel that embodied the spirit of its time. Launched in 1864, the Twilight was a sleek, sidewheel steamboat, built for both speed and elegance. Measuring 210 feet in length and with a beam of 36 feet, the Twilight was designed to navigate the often treacherous rivers of the Midwest, including the mighty Missouri River. The Twilight was commissioned by a group of ambitious investors in St. Louis, who saw the potential for profit in the booming post-Civil War economy. The vessel was intended to serve the thriving trade routes that connected the agricultural heartland of Missouri with the markets of St. Louis and beyond. With its shallow draft and powerful engines, the Twilight was capable of carrying heavy cargoes of grain, livestock, and manufactured goods, as well as passengers eager to explore the opportunities of the frontier. The Twilight quickly became a familiar sight on the Missouri River, its graceful silhouette cutting through the water as it made its way up and down the river. The steamboat was known for its reliability and speed, and it soon developed a reputation as one of the finest vessels on the river. Passengers aboard the Twilight enjoyed a level of comfort and luxury that was rare in the rough-and-tumble world of frontier travel. The main deck featured spacious cabins, a grand salon, and a dining room that offered fine meals and spectacular views of the passing landscape. Chapter 2. The Missouri River. A treacherous highway. The Missouri River, often called the Big Muddy, was a formidable and unpredictable force. Its waters were fast-moving, its currents were strong, and its channel was constantly shifting. Sandbars, snags, and submerged debris were hidden dangers that could rip through the hull of a steamboat and send it to the bottom in minutes. Navigating the Missouri required skill, experience, and no small amount of luck. The Twilight's captain, George Conway, was a seasoned riverboat man with years of experience navigating the Missouri River. He was respected by his crew and known for his steady hand and deep knowledge of the river's many hazards. Under Captain Conway's command, the Twilight had completed numerous successful voyages, delivering goods and passengers to towns and settlements along the river's winding course. But despite Captain Conway's experience and the Twilight's reputation, the Missouri River was a force that could never be fully tamed. The river was known for its sudden shifts and unpredictable changes, and even the most experienced crews could find themselves in peril. For the Twilight, the summer of 1865 would prove to be a fateful time, as the steamboat embarked on a journey that would end in disaster. Chapter 3. A fateful voyage. In late July 1865, the Twilight was docked in St. Louis, preparing for a routine trip upriver to deliver cargo to towns along the Missouri River. The vessel was loaded with a mix of goods, including barrels of flour, sacks of grain, crates of dry goods, and other essential supplies. The steamboat also carried a number of passengers, including farmers, merchants, and a few families traveling to the frontier. As the Twilight set off from St. Louis, the mood aboard the steamboat was one of optimism and anticipation. The Civil War had ended just a few months earlier, and the country was beginning to heal and rebuild. For many of the passengers and crew, the voyage was a symbol of new beginnings and the promise of prosperity in the post-war era. The journey upriver was uneventful at first, with the Twilight making steady progress against the current. The steamboat stopped at several towns along the way, unloading cargo and picking up new passengers. The weather was warm, and the river was calm, offering little hint of the dangers that lay ahead. As the Twilight approached the town of Rocheport, Missouri, the crew began to notice subtle changes in the river. The current seemed to be growing stronger, and the water level appeared to be dropping. The Missouri River was notorious for its shifting sandbars, and Captain Conway knew that this stretch of the river was particularly treacherous. He ordered the crew to slow the steamboat and take extra precautions as they navigated the winding channel. Despite these efforts, disaster struck in the early hours of August 8, 1865. As the Twilight rounded a bend in the river near Rocheport, it struck a submerged sandbar with a jarring impact. The steamboat shuddered as the sandbar tore into its hull, causing water to rush into the lower compartments. The crew and passengers were jolted awake by the collision, and panic quickly spread as the realization set in that the Twilight was in serious trouble. Captain Conway and his crew acted quickly, trying to assess the damage and save the steamboat. They attempted to reverse the engines and free the Twilight from the sandbar, but the vessel was stuck fast. Water continued to pour into the hull, and it soon became clear that the steamboat was sinking. The crew worked frantically to lower the lifeboats and evacuate the passengers, but in the chaos and darkness, the situation grew increasingly dire. Chapter 4. The sinking of the Twilight. As the Twilight began to list dangerously to one side, the crew and passengers scrambled to abandon ship. The lifeboats were quickly filled, and some passengers jumped into the river in a desperate attempt to swim to shore. The crew tried to maintain order, but the panic and confusion made it difficult to coordinate the evacuation. The steamboat's deck was soon awash with water, and the Twilight began to break apart as the river's current pulled it downstream. In the end, the Twilight sank quickly, disappearing beneath the murky waters of the Missouri River. The exact number of casualties remains uncertain, but it is believed that several passengers and crew members lost their lives in the disaster. Those who survived were left stranded on the riverbank, watching helplessly as the remnants of the steamboat were carried away by the current. The news of the Twilight's sinking spread rapidly, shocking the communities along the Missouri River. The loss of the steamboat was a tragic reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the surface of the river. Chapter 5. Aftermath and Legacy. In the aftermath of the sinking, efforts were made to recover what could be salvaged from the wreck of the Twilight. Divers and salvage crews were sent to the site near Rocheport, but the strong currents and shifting sands made it difficult to locate and retrieve the sunken vessel. Some cargo was recovered, but much of the Twilight and its contents were lost to the river. The sinking of the Twilight was a somber event in the history of the Missouri River, but it was not an isolated incident. The river claimed many steamboats over the years, each disaster a testament to the power and unpredictability of the Big Muddy. Yet, despite the dangers, steamboats remained a vital part of the transportation network in the American Midwest, continuing to carry goods and passengers along the river's winding course. For those who remembered the Twilight, the steamboat became a symbol of the perils of river travel and the fragility of human endeavors in the face of nature's might. The disaster near Rocheport was a reminder that even the most advanced technology of the time could not fully conquer the forces of the natural world.